Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
Mine is so Gen X. Sometime in the 1980s, Reagan decided that poor people shouldn't have even food stamps. And so he started giving us blocks of cheese and big vats of peanut butter and like big jars of mayonnaise. I think because poor people couldn't be trusted. As a kid, we would have this big block of cheese that was really crumbly that we called Reagan cheese. They didn't hand out bread. So we used to do this thing when microwaves came out, which was exciting. Take this crumbly Reagan cheese and put it on a plate and then melt it onto the plate and then just smush mayonnaise and mustard onto it and then let it harden. We called it Reagan cheese sandwiches with no bread. We also used to just eat spoonfuls of peanut butter from the big can. And dessert would be we would take Karo syrup. This is like maybe a Southern thing. We'd either take butter or peanut butter and Karo syrup and just swoosh it around on a plastic plate and then just eat it. Karo syrup's like less than $1.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
I guess today is Food Trauma Day. The government used to give you food stamps so you could go and buy things, but they also gave you a box of food. And it was like cornflakes, powdered milk, a Chef Boyardee pizza kit, a big block of cheese, butter, a big block of butter, some lard, bag of flour. There were like, I think some canned vegetables and stuff, but they'd give you this box of food and this was supposed to like last you through the month, you know? And towards the middle of the month, we would run out of food. And so we would have cheese and coffee. And that was instant coffee that they gave you and some of that government cheese melted in the coffee. And then you would like scoop it out and wipe it on some white bread. And cheese and coffee was breakfast before school.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
I'm sitting here getting my fat bitch on. And I'll be very honest, growing up lower middle class in North Omaha, I don't ever remember a time where we didn't have food of some sort in the house. We even had a freezer in the basement where we kept, like, you know, if mom found a hamburger on sale or a roast on sale or a turkey on sale, it'd go in there for later. The pantry always had something in it. So did the fridge. I think some of this was because she grew up during the Depression. And she did experience food insecurity. She had her own jobs when I was a kid. And I know she used her money from those jobs to buy groceries. If we had just had to rely on my father's paycheck, no, we wouldn't have been able to make ends meet. You should listen to some of these stitches. It's horrifying to find out what kids in the United States went through.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
So I heard this and I immediately like, oh, I've got it. And I meant for it to be funny because I was thinking this up like while I was driving. But the more that I sat on it, I think it actually might have opened up some old wounds about growing up. Anywho, if the food stamps were gone, no cash on hand, you'd already rated the change. If you had less than $10, there's always a kids get in free day at any buffet. And my mom would bring gallon Ziploc bags in her purse and have us load up on stuff like pizza or rolls and things like that that would survive as leftovers. I think I understand why I have anxiety about grocery shopping now.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
So, like, my parents were always Baroque, but they were, like, the type of selfish people that would prioritize, like, a dinner at Golden Corral for the two of them instead of, like, feeding their 3 kids. So, when me and my sister were ever hungry, we would make what we used to call TP Kool-Aid. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you basically get a Kool-Aid single or a jar of Kool-Aid, and then you rip some toilet paper in it to make it like a mashy pulp so that you feel full, and you just drink it.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
Plain white rice, but it was always overcooked because we were children and nobody told us how to cook and nobody was like watching us, and we didn't have electricity. We had like a gas stove, and so like there was no way to look up like how do you make rice, you know, what time is it. So it was usually like a boiled wet mess, or we would get candy bars from Dollar General, and I always told my siblings like we were paying for it so they didn't feel bad.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
Sleep. But nah, for real, we used to get like these big ass bags of bagels from the Boys and Girls Club, and yeah, we used to kind of live off those things. Oh, what the fuck is that? I was eating chicken. Yeah, we used to just live off those bagels. That's why I don't really fuck with bagels now. Like, I'll eat them, but I don't really fuck with them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
My family had two go-tos. One of them was, of course, we grew up in the country and we were desperately poor. So my mom, during deer season, would always can all of our extra deer meat. And we always had jars of deer meat. And she would buy the egg noodles from the store when they went on sale for like 50 cents or whatever. And we would have deer noodles, which was literally just canned deer meat with a bag of egg noodles. And I had that a lot. Like, it's now a comfort food. Another thing that we did a lot, this is actually my fondest memory as a child. One of them was some mornings I would wake up and it was so desperately cold, and my mom would bring in my clothes warm off the wood stove and put them under the blankets with me and let me get dressed under the blankets. And then she would come in with a bowl with homemade vanilla pudding over a piece of toast. And I remember it being so warm and sweet and delicious. And when I brought this up to her as an adult, I found out that those mornings that were such fond memories for me were because overnight the wood stove had gone out and she woke up with frost on the blankets, and she remembered being so desperately cold as a child, and she never wanted us to know that. And so she would wake up before us and get the wood fire burning, put our school clothes on top of the wood fire or the wood stove, and make the pudding recipe on the back of the cornstarch box and give it to us over a piece of bread. And I think it's a mark of bravery that my mother managed to never make us afraid.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
Okay, so I went down the rabbit hole of watching all the stitches to this video. And I have come to realize that growing up the way that I did created an issue in me that I didn't even realize it. I guess I just didn't realize it. But I'm literally always at the store. Like, no exaggeration. The lady at the Walmart down the street, she knows me. She knows when I dye my hair. She knows when I cut my hair. She knows my kids. She literally knows me because I'm always in the store. Growing up so damn poor, my mom worked at a restaurant and she worked like nights. She would come home like 2 o'clock in the morning. And there would be times that she would bring home like this big, like a big trash bag full of like fried chicken. And as kids, we didn't know, you know what I'm saying? We didn't know. I remember that getting the food stamps, that was, we knew it was about to be on then. And because, I mean, we got the food stamps. As we got towards the end of the food stamps, which would sometimes come way too damn fast, way too fast, I already had a deal with the neighbor that lived upstairs, Miss Faye. I would borrow a pack of hot dogs from her until mama get the food stamps. Like, oh Lord, but the fried chicken. There was a Hispanic guy that used to work with my mom in the kitchen doing the cooking. She was a waitress or whatever. He would literally over salt chicken sometimes, and they couldn't use it because they couldn't serve it at the restaurant. So he would say, oh, I have to throw this batch away. I have to throw this batch away. He would put it in a trash bag and put it by the trash can, but not in the trash can. And my mom would get it when she got off from work, when my stepdad would go to pick her up, my ex-stepdad, because he was a piece of shit. We should have never been living like that. Never should have been living like that. But she would literally bring her home, and those were like, I remember those being such happy days. We would be eating fried chicken for days. But we would smother it. We put gravy on it, make a fine, rice or whatever. We ate. I remember those moments so crystal clear. But now I'm always at the grocery store because I refuse to ever be without food in this house. Like, I'm never going to be without food in this house. My kids will never know what that feels like. Oh my God. I didn't even realize I didn't even realize I had this issue. Growing up not having food made me a food hoarder of sorts.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
So I was going to do this, but because of, just because. So when I was a kid, I lived in a motel with my mom. She was a heavy drug user, and she would disappear for weeks at a time. Literally just disappear. I was a kid, mind you, not even in my teens, I was a kid. So I would try to eat at friends' house from school. I would spend the night as much as I could until their parents started asking questions. And when their parents started asking questions, I would disappear. So when I would disappear, I would go back to the motel, and of course nobody's been there, and it's a motel, so you can only imagine I literally ate saltine crackers, and if there was some cheese there or something, peanut butter, I would roll it up in a ball and nibble on it like a mouse and try to keep it as long as I could and eat on that until I was able to either go to school or to a friend's house that I can eat until their parents started asking questions again. And then school was rough because, when you go through things like that, there was a teacher there that, she would let me come in. She would pick me up before school, and I would wash my clothes in the home ec room. I would take a shower in the gym, and she would get me ready for the day. And it was, it was life. I mean, I think a lot more of us go through stuff like this than we realize. And the only reason why I'm doing this video is because of the stitches that I watched. At first, I was really hard-bodied about it, like, get over it, like, it's our past, like, we've all been through stuff like this. And I think it's a defense mechanism, the reason why I'm like that, because that's just not how it is. There was one lady who said that she actually has I don't know what you would call it, but it's a problem from how she was raised to where she's always at the store. And that's why I'm doing this stitch, because I literally started thinking about it like, I'm always at the store. Like, I'm always constantly, I don't care if I buy something out of the clearance aisle for 25 cents. I am always, as soon as money hits my pocket, I'm going to the store. Nothing makes me feel more satisfied than going to the store and buying literally everything that we need for the house. Paper goods, food, just odd end stuff, like anything. Constantly. I am constantly at the store. And then when she said that, it really triggered me because, yes, as a child, I ate saltine crackers. There was no food. There was no stove, no refrigerator, no nothing. We lived in a motel.
Ditch this and tell me something you ate as a kid because you didn't have any other food in the house.
I've never mentioned this before, but my birth mother, my biological mother, became addicted to drugs when I was about 10, 11 or something like that. I have such a mental block on that time frame. And one of the first signs that your parent has become addicted to something is all of a sudden there's no food in the cabinet. There's no food in the fridge. So myself and my other sister, we would either bring stuff home from school, like our lunch, so we can split it again amongst the three of us, because it was just three of us at the time. We would either ask the neighbors for food, or I would steal stuff from the store. You had to do what you gotta do. One day I went over to the neighbor's house, and the teenage daughter, Sandra, opened up the door. She had to have been maybe 18 or something at the time. Sandra looked at me. She said, "You know what? Let me see what you got at your house." Now, while she's going through our fridge and our cabinets, I'm behind her in tears because I am so embarrassed and just mortified that this woman sees we have absolutely nothing. As Sandra closes the last cabinet, I am so prepared for her to embarrass me and shame me. Sandra turns around and looks at me. "Girl, you don't see all this food in this fridge?" "What?" Sandra taught me how to make egg and rice. Chandra taught me how to make fried onions. She also pointed out a couple other little dishes I could make with what we had in the fridge. Because Chandra did not pity me, because she did not feel sorry for me, because she did not make fun of me, but instead she empowered me to take control of that moment, me and my sisters never went hungry again. She taught me how to survive. She taught me how to look in between the lines. She taught me how to push through. She gave me a strength at that moment that I carry to this day. Thank you, Chandra. Thank you.
Did you ever have a time where you realized a good friend wasn't actually your friend?
I had a best friend that I moved in with, and we had an apartment together.